Hello everyone, and welcome back to the farm. Contrary to what you're probably assuming right now, it is in fact not the morning like I normally start my videos off with. We're actually tuning in from the end of the day. And that is because we're working on our project tomorrow, which is a farewell tour for our John Deere 9460R. It's going to be leaving the farm somewhat in the near future. We're going to have its replacement here on the farm, but it's not going to be tomorrow. Before we dive into it, make sure you like the video and leave a comment down below. Smashing that like button, leaving a comment of any sort, whether it be an emoji, where you're from, what your favorite type of tractor is, that is tremendously helpful for me in terms of feedback. And it also helps me overcome our YouTube overlords and their tremendously powerful and brutal algorithms sometimes. So make sure you do that. I really appreciate it. To give you a pretty simple summary of today, it was hot. How hot exactly? I'd say it was hotter than probably shouldn't use any of those. I don't think I have any words or metaphors that are PG enough for this channel to describe how warm it was. Let's just say that I'm not happy and the crops are. The sun's shining, we're getting a lot of UV rays, but it feels almost tropical out here. Pretty miserable. I was listening to an atmospheric scientist yesterday named Eric Snodgrass, formerly of the great University of Illinois, now employed by Nutrien. He said that a single acre of corn this time of year puts in 3,500 gallons of water into the atmosphere per day. Not only is that a lot of gallons in the atmosphere, that's a lot of subsoil moisture being extracted, and that's why rains are so important. To put that into perspective, that tiny little 90-acre cornfield out there would be putting out 315,000 gallons of water per day. Woo! Needless to say, I'm glad I'm not the one footing the bill for all that H2O. In a roundabout way, the reason I even brought up the temperature in the first place is to kind of justify why I'm going to be getting this tractor out tonight and having it prepared for the morning, as opposed to just starting in the morning. As many of you could probably guess, and I'm sure some of you can even relate to it, by about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, if the weather's anything like today, you don't want to take anything heavy down the road. And even though this tractor is leaving the farm, it's not going to come home, it's not going to be ours. We're not going to send it off in a bad way like that. I've just came up with the perfect name for our machine shed. We're going to call it the Deere Den. Let's get this tractor out. I'm sure all of these tractors are going to be greatly appreciative of me opening this door up and getting some fresh air in here, because it was warm and sticky, to say the least. And no, the new combine is not here. That's the old 670 that we still have. No new combine. And by the end of this video, that tractor is going to be gone. Why is it that every time you get into a barn to get a tractor out or another piece of equipment, it's always the farthest back in line? That tractor is the one that's going, I got to move another tractor. We've got all this empty space. But how did it manage to be the most inconvenient one to get out? I don't know. I'll get the 310 out of the way first, assuming it'll start. If your tractor doesn't start in the middle of the summer, you got problems. Give me that AC, baby, please. The breath of an angel. You're no longer protected, tractor. We're coming for you. Close enough to make you anxious, but not enough to do any damage. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now would be a perfect time to mention my designer jorts that I completely forgot about earlier. Bought at Rural King, $9. I took about 50 cents worth of fabric out. Am I worried that I look like an Amish man? No. Do they keep me cool in this heat? Not really either. At least I get some sun on my pale little getaway sticks. Back to the task at hand. I'm sorry, but your time has come. The 8310R can no longer protect you from your fate. Get you pulled out of the barn. Oh, for good measure, I should probably check the oil one last time. It's more for the sentiment than for the actual responsibility. You got plenty. She's certainly a reliable tractor. It's miserable in here too. I think it's 95 degrees and 90% humidity in these tractors. Maybe if corn gets to $8, we can put in a shop. I don't think so. But it is nice to dream about. We spend all our money on tractors. We can't afford concrete. Let's get some sunshine on you. Say bye to all your friends. Bye-bye. Have a good time. Don't all good deers go to heaven or something like that? Isn't that a saying? Now we definitely need to get all of our belongings out of this tractor. It's kind of like a reverse firing, as opposed to us having to take our stuff in a box and leave the office. The office leaves us. We don't leave the office. So we gotta get all our junk out. I'm not sure what we've collected in the last 9 years, other than a lot of Subway napkins, t-shirt, a slightly disabled hammer, an entire roll of paper towels. I don't even want to know why these are in here. Hopefully these are in here for cleaning windows and not exits, I guess is a good way to put it. Of course, we've got a Midland 15-watt radio in here. If you're not using Midland radios, What are you doing? Get my toy sack out. You never know what you're gonna get when you open up a toolbox. Sometimes it's still organized, other times it's just like an explosion has gone off. And we're somewhere in the middle here. We need at least a 15. Do we risk it and take just the 15 and be disappointed if we don't have what else we need? All right, I'm doing it. I'm just taking a 15. Should just pop out here somehow. Radio's free. I'll have to take the antenna and stuff off. That's not a big deal. Well, I'll be darned. We had the right size wrench. Good work, team. It's really not impressive that I picked the right size. It would have been exponentially more disappointing if I didn't pick the right one, because I've been working on these things for 10 years now. What do we have in our treasure chest? A bag of parts, a bag of no parts, a part that looks like it's been used and taken off, 2 long zip ties in case things get a little rowdy, knock-on sweep setup system here, 2 bolts, 4 washers, and a hose clamp. So if anyone has that on their tractor bingo card, make sure you cross that off. There's a piece of history, part of the original build order sheet. It was actually built in 2011, so it must have been on the lot when we bought it. That was before my time. Huh. Looks like someone unassembled this one. I learned this method from my dad. It's like an episode of Storage Wars. You never know what you're gonna get. I've learned this really cool trick here. If I just leave a lot of junk next to a tractor like that overnight, when I come back in the morning, it's usually all gone. So I'll see you guys later. Relax, psychopaths. I'm getting a box for all this stuff. Should be useful if whoever cleans that up. Over 9 years of field work with one tractor, and we can fit all of our junk, aka memories, in one box. Most of these will be moved to the new tractor. The toilet paper, though, it may go to the auger wagon. Never know when nature's gonna strike. The last bit of equipment left in the tractor, and also the most valuable, is the John Deere Green Star Auto Guidance System. That would be our 2630 monitor right there. It has all the brains, the activations. It is coupled with the Starfire 3000 dome. That is what communicates with the sky. The auto steer gods, wherever they are, they're up there somewhere. You can't see them, but that's what communicates with the satellites. So those two in combination are what provide auto guidance. Let's talk for a minute about what's been going on in the John Deere Green Star hardware industry as of right now. That's easy, it's nothing. People are desperately trying to get their hands on all different sorts of these domes and monitors. This has been a persistent issue for almost a year. I mentioned in my planning preparation videos that people were dying to find these monitors and activations. They were even selling for 2 times the standard retail price in third-party markets like eBay. That is how bad the shortage has been. Now, I'm sure some of you will say, well, why do farmers want this so bad? If they don't have it, can't they just steer it themselves? And yeah, the answer is they probably could steer it themselves, but once you've had a taste of the good life, it's hard to go back. Be honest with yourselves. If you've been eating steaks at a 5-star restaurant, you're not gonna have much fun going back to ramen. Now, if you're a case person, it'd be kind of like downgrading from maybe a Campbell's chicken noodle soup to a ramen. Deere's a little different. Either way, you come to love these systems. Not only has the manufacturing of these been delayed, they're hard to come by, people have been stealing these off of tractors in the middle of the night, sometimes even in the middle of the day. So if you have one of these sitting on top of your tractor for the world to see, you're parked out in the middle of the field, come harvest time, maybe take it home with you or at least padlock it on. Some people really have no moral compass and have an equal lust for John Deere Starfire domes. Part of trading up from this 9460R to our new tractor is that we're gonna have to turn in our 2630, our activations, and our 3000 dome. Now, Dad and I think we can pull a fast one on the John Deere dealership and get a little retaliation for something that's happened over the last few years. My dad is notorious for being a trickster, and once in every blue moon, I like to be a little bit of an accomplice. And with something this golden, you can't pass up on the opportunity. Here is our Starfire 3000 dome, a hot commodity, as I mentioned, also worth close to $3 grand retail. You could probably sell it for a couple grand more than that right now. I'm sure you're wondering, what could you possibly have to substitute on that 9460R that would trick your John Deere dealership? And boy, do I have a surprise for you. This is a Starfire ITC dome. It's one of John Deere's original auto guidance systems. Probably 15 plus years old at this point. And here is our Starfire 3000 in question. A little bit meatier, but pretty similar in stature. This joke may be lost on a few of you non-farm folk, but anyone who's familiar with the ITC system might find this kind of comical. So a little bit of background, the John Deere ITC dome like this right here was one of John Deere's first commercial agricultural auto steer domes. It is pretty much what a majority of Deere customers started with a long time ago when they started driving in straight lines thanks to all those satellites. Everyone really thought it was the end-all be-all. You really wouldn't have to have much more financial input into your auto steer hardware. It does the job. You don't really need to upgrade. Well, that was true up until about 4 years ago when Deere announced that the Starfire ITC domes like this one right here was actually going to go out of commission. The story that Deere went with was that the US government or some private company was decommissioning the satellites or the specific frequency that the ITC systems functioned on. Essentially, that means that these were going to become overpriced paperweights. Now, obviously, that upset a lot of farmers because they really don't want to have to spend any more money than they have to on any kind of project, and having to buy a whole new dome where the next level was $3,000 didn't really go over that well. I'm sure I'm being a little dramatic. Other people had already upgraded to newer domes that were a little bit more accurate, but there were a lot of people who weren't really too happy at the end of the day because these are really long-term investments when you consider the price. The one silver lining was Deere did give farmers a little bit of a heads up. I think we had about a 3-year window that we're going to be able to use these. Then they'd subsequently be downgraded to only available for yield mapping for like another year or two, and then they essentially were worthless. We all know that Mother Deere is always looking out for us, probably doesn't want to make any more money off of us loyal farmers than they have to, but if you're on the Deere PR team, listen to me for a second. I'm going to give you one piece of advice. Blaming the US government for this wasn't necessarily a bad strategy. However, you're dealing with US farmers. We practically work for the US government. The much more effective scapegoat, though, is the Chinese. Nearly everything that goes wrong in US agriculture is usually China's fault. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But that is the very common trend. Commodity prices are down. It's, oh, those darn Chinese people. Prices are up. It's, oh, China bought something. Manufacturing delays from a chip shortage. China's fault. COVID. China's fault. It's a very obvious pattern, and if you want to get away with anything in U.S. agriculture, just blame the Chinese. That's my 2 cents. Now, I don't run a PR firm, so maybe you shouldn't take my advice on that one. Back to the story at hand. We're going to put the Starfire ITC dome on our 9460R tractor that we're taking into our dealership, and either one, we have a funny joke, or two, we get away with $3,000 and they don't even know it. Realistically, the only difference between the ITC dome and the 3000 dome, other than a little bit of dirt, a large amount of nerdy stuff, and a little bit of nomenclature, is a very tiny difference in size. I just don't know if they'll recognize that they don't have a 3000 dome on this tractor. As desperate as everyone is, maybe a little bit of Sharpie is all you need. It even fits on the same mount. Man, that's a nice Starfire 3000 dome that comes with this John Deere 9460R tractor. And that right there, folks, is how you trick your John Deere dealership out of $3,000 on your trade-in. Just a little bit of a switcheroo. All right, now let's take off the wheel weights. Just kidding, we're not taking off the wheel weights. We'll do that tomorrow morning. Well, that was fast. Back to work. Time for the tractor's last ride. Looks like no one stole our Starfire 3000 dome overnight. They probably would have been pretty disappointed when they got home and saw that haul. Loading up. Since I gave the 9670 a little bit of a tribute, I probably ought to make somewhat of an effort to do it for this tractor. Don't want it to feel like a red-headed stepchild. I just don't have the same attachment to tractors like this that I do to our harvesting equipment. Although I probably would be a little sad if the grain cart tractor left, unless it was for like a quad track. It's been a really good tractor, relatively problem-free. Coincidentally, it was our one of 3 tractors that did have oil in the coolant and had to have that aftermarket John Deere pip kit done to it. Supposedly they fixed that, but we haven't really put enough hours on it to know. I guess we may never see the outcome to that. It'll be someone else's problem. Time to say our goodbyes. hazards on the road. Supposed to be another scorcher this morning, so I'm glad we're getting this out of the way early. See you later, farm. We've got a game changer for all of you. It's called cereal out of a cup. You get to drink your cereal. That's probably Nobel Prize worthy. You have got to be kidding me. I literally cannot make this up. This is the same mowing outfit as when I came through with the combine blocking the road. Now maybe it'll squeeze by, we'll see. I'm much more confident in my abilities in this tractor. Okay, that was a non-event. These four-wheel drive tractors are actually pretty nimble. They're a little bit squirrely going down the road, and I'd forgotten that because I haven't driven one probably since last fall. I'm not sure I even ran a field cultivator once this year. We're on the home stretch now, almost to the dealership. Alright, we've definitely arrived at the John Deere dealership, but I'm not sure where to park this tractor. There's no room on the front row to showcase our nice Green Star receiver here, so I'll just park it here in the middle of the lot. Asking for a friend, but does anyone know what the monetary value is that gets you from a misdemeanor to a felony? For the record, everyone, the 3,000's right there. This is all in good fun. Now, if we were really high energy comedians, we definitely would have taken the wheel weights off. That would have been hysterical. This 2730 Ripper has been here on the lot for probably 2 or 3 years now. I'm just astounded at how heavily built it is. Look at the main support beams on this. Massive road tires. It looks like it's built to pull through frozen ground as stout as it is. I'd personally love to see how it runs, but we're kind of going away from the heavier tillage, so we may never get an opportunity to do that. As you can imagine though, the only thing sour about it is its price tag. It's easily in the 6 figures and it's just a piece of iron. Speaking of developing situations and long-term consequences, let's hop in a time machine real quick, go back about 5 months or so to these farms right around here west of our main farm by about 5 miles. I'm sure a lot of you may recall that these fields over here got absolutely shredded in a hailstorm. If you didn't see that video, you want to refresh your memory, I'll throw it up top here somewhere. When all that damage occurred, I made reference to how difficult it is to predict what's going to happen in the future to these crops that received all of those injuries. Now, we do carry hail insurance on both our corn and our soybeans. Our soybeans, we received a little bit of compensation to hopefully make up for that loss in vegetative growth and the damage and replanting we had to do out in the field. Now, we're not getting rich by any means on that. On our corn, though, we didn't receive any kind of compensation whatsoever. Their logic being that small corn plants can recover from that damage very quickly. It won't kill them. We're going to trot out into this field, though, and I'm going to demonstrate to you why I don't think that's necessarily true and why they may need to reevaluate their payment measures. Overall, there's no denying that this is not extremely good-looking corn. We've got big ears, we've got a good stand. However, there are a few factors out here that I think may limit our top-end yield, which wasn't really accounted for in the early assessments. First and foremost, let's talk about what most agronomists probably noticed. This field is chock full of disease. I wouldn't be surprised by any means to see this quantity of disease had we not sprayed fungicide on this field. We did spray fungicide though, and the pressure out here is that high that it's already taken back over. Now, whether or not that causes yield damage, that's really hard to say, but I do think it's a long-term consequence of the hail, multiple sites of injury, and a lot of these diseases infect in the early seedling stages. The real issue that we've been keeping a very close eye on was how all of our plants out here responded to that damage and how quickly they recovered. What we're noticing is that a majority of the population out here really came back alive and did not struggle, put on big ears. That is probably close to a 10-inch ear, if not larger. This cannot be said, though, for all the plants out here. We had nearly a perfect population or stand at the beginning of the growing season. You couldn't have asked for better germination or soil conditions. The hailstorm shredded this field to a pulp, and what we saw about a month later is that a lot of the plants had recovered. You couldn't tell, but there was a large number of plants out in the field, like this little stringy one I'm holding right here, that never adequately recovered from that amount of damage. I'm sure most of you are going to argue, well, the plant next to it probably just put on a bigger ear. And that is somewhat true. This plant has a very large ear. Okay, it looks like a non-issue now. Big ear on this plant, no ear on this plant, it evens out. That's not the case though. A much more fair comparison would be to look at all the plants in a close proximity. Here is the one directly next to the small plant, a very large ear. The one next to it though has a very large ear. And then you go to the other side, there's a large ear, and the next one has a large ear, and then one even after that has a large ear. Wow, that one's ugly. Strange pollination on that one, which also could be a result of the hail damage early on. The argument we are trying to make here is that that early hail damage resulted in a small percentage of our plants not producing viable ears. Given the high yield environment we're in, this plant should have had a considerable ear on it because all of its neighbors all throughout the field had ears as well, except for the plants that look like this. Now some of them did produce a little tiny ear. A lot of times that'll be lost out the combine. The deck plates won't be able to hold on to it. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe this ear can compensate for the plant next to it. I don't think this ear is really that much different than all the other ones around it. It really does not take much of a walk to the field to notice that there's all sorts of plants out here that have these tiny, very incomplete ears. There's another one. Yet all around it is surrounded by monster ears. We're talking 275 plus corn bushel ears all throughout the field. You get some that don't have anything, and this will add up very quickly. Before I go any farther, I just want to say that that may be the most impressive field of corn I've been in all year. I still think that we're leaving some on the table from that early hail damage. I pulled this ear that I thought was a very fair representation of the majority of the ears out in the field. Let's do some quick math though and see if we lose a couple percent of our population from this hail damage, how that affects our overall yield. That is an 18 by 45 ear. Nice. Very large and deep set kernels. It's going to have very high test weight. We're not quite at black layer. You can still see the milk line progressing down. I ran some very loose projections here, so take this with a grain of salt. If we lost 3% of the population out in the field with ears of this size, I rounded down to 18 by 40 to be modest, multiply that out and divide that by 80,000 kernels per bushel, because based on what I'm seeing here, this is going to be very heavy. That is over 9 bushels per acre lost on this field. 9 bushels per acre at $5 per bushel is $45 per acre lost theoretically out here. Take that across 100 acres, that is $4,500 lost. Of course, we're completely speculating here. We don't really have anything to validate those claims. We just think that maybe the insurance companies maybe should readjust how they look at early corn damage. It's not all sunshine and roses. Now, right across the road here, we've got our Don Mario beans sold and serviced by Burris that were also hammered with hail. These beans actually looked rather horrific. We replanted 100% of the fields. I'm sure in some areas we have too many beans. You can tell by the way they're laying over that maybe the standability right now is not too great. The pod count out here though is nothing to scoff at. There are 3.9 beans, so we're still a ways away from seeing maturity, but they've recovered quite a bit from where they were 5 months ago. Ultimately, this just reiterates the point that variables that are completely out of our hands can have a drastic effect on our entire growing season. Oftentimes, these seemingly minor events can be the difference between a train wreck and a monstrous crop. Now, there is a sight to be seen right there, especially over your soybean field. Maybe we got 100 bushel beans out there. That rainbow is a little bit of a misrepresentation of the weather today. As I said earlier, it's an absolute scorcher. I think that a fireball would probably be a little bit more fitting for how it feels today. Regardless though, I still have some work to get done. It's the type of work that will probably be just as unenjoyable for you to watch as it is for me to do in person. So I'm going to end the video here, not going to drag you on for 45 minutes. I am still throwing together some merch. We're getting closer to the end of that process. I can't wait to show you that. The Farm Progress Show is in Decatur next week. I'm planning on going there. I've actually never been there before. If by chance you do see me over there, make sure you come and say hi. There is going to be a ton of very exciting stuff happening over the next few weeks. We've got new equipment coming in. I'm going to put together an equipment tour. So make sure you keep an eye on the video uploads. Thank you all for tuning in. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Harvest is near, everyone. Peace!